Stop. Ask yourself, are you confessing your neighbor's sins or your own sins? Hey guys, it's Lizzie. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Lizzie's Answers. This is going to be a really simple video, but I think it will help a lot of people. Before we get into the video, make sure you are subscribed to my channel and click the bell button next to the subscribe button so that you are on notification squad. Also, linked below is my merch store. I have mugs, t-shirts, stickers, phone cases, bags. So go check it out, support my channel. Also, make sure to be following me on my Instagram and my Twitter so I can talk to you guys every day and we can DM each other. Let's get into the video. So I've made two other videos talking about confession. One is an apologetics type video where I just talk about Bible verses and early church documents talking about the sacrament of confession. I explain apostolic succession, in persona Christi, just the theology of it. So that's going to be linked here and in the video description. And then I made another video talking about my first confession, which a lot of you watching this may have never done confession before and want to watch a video on how to do a first confession. This is not that video. I say this because my first confession was an hour and a half because I was baptized in a Protestant church when I was 13, and then converting into Catholicism, you have to confess all your sins after you were baptized. So that took so long. And it was an amazing, amazing experience, my first confession. But after your first confession, it's really important to be respectful to everyone else waiting in line, to be concise, condensed, to remember all your sins, and to not make excuses in the confessional. So here are 13 practical tips on how to give a good confession. Number 1, write down your sins. Take out your phone, open the notes section of your phone, and type out a list, like 1, 2, 3, 4, of all your sins that you have recently committed. You can also get a piece of paper and write it down that way, but I really like using the Notes app or a Google Doc because I can immediately delete it. I never have to think about it or look at it again. No one will find it, because when Jesus has forgiven you in the confessional with his power of dying on the cross, it's over, it's done. And so you could like burn the paper or rip it up, but just use your phone. It's a lot easier. I'm going to talk about this at number 6, but I did have one bad experience where the priest was like, "Why are you on your phone?" So now I always say, I have my sins written on my phone. I'm going to be reading off my phone. And my last confession was a few days ago, and the priest started laughing because I told him one time the priest yelled at me because I was on my phone, and he's like, "Yeah, that's fine." So totally fine to use your phone in confession. Many Catholics do that. So number 2, be as condensed as possible writing out your sins. For example, these aren't my sins, just examples that you guys can relate to. So you can be like, 1, jealousy 2 times. 2, masturbation 3 times. 3, speeding on the road in a dangerous way that could kill someone 1 time. Yes, that's a mortal sin if you drive in a dangerous way, not even drunk driving, but just like speeding and being dangerous, that's a mortal sin. 4, using God's name in vain 1 time. 5, spreading heresy 1 time. That's me. I confess spreading heresy because I say things in videos or live streams like in the past, and then I realize that I'm teaching heresy, so I confess that during confession. So if you're unsure about what is a mortal sin, what sins are of grave matter, what you're supposed to confess, I recommend downloading the Laudate app, Laudate, L-A-U-D-A-T-E. I'm gonna link it below. It's a Catholic app, and they have a confession feature where you can actually go through a list and determine if you need to confess something. So it has literally a list of sins, and that's obviously not approved by the Vatican. It's not an official list, but it really, really helps. So if you're a new Catholic or an old Catholic, that really helps. Use the Laudate app for your condensed list. Number 3, write down the intro and conclusion before and after the list. If you are a new Catholic or you're a 2-year-old Catholic like me and still don't have stuff memorized, write it down. So what I mean by this, the intro is Forgive me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 6 weeks since my last confession, but fill in the blank with how long it's been. And then the conclusion is the act of contrition, which is a prayer you have to pray. You can tell the priest, I'm a new Catholic, and repeat after him, but I've taken the initiative to just Google it and copy and paste into my notes app. Number 4, this is the most important. If you have something lengthy on your list, have a story you want to share, have a lot of questions, had a complicated scarring experience, and you want to have a conversation or therapy-like 10-minute session with the priest, I recommend calling your priest or texting your priest and making a confession appointment where you can go to his office and talk one-on-one and have a long conversation. If you think your confession will take more than 3 to 4 minutes, you need to be respectful to everyone else waiting in line and make an appointment. I have so many times I've experienced myself, or I've heard stories of people who the confession time runs out because one person is in the confessional for 15 minutes and other people don't get to go to confession and are just waiting and waiting in line. The purpose of confession is to state your sins, state the amount of times you've committed your sins. Jesus is working through the priest who says the prayers that forgive you, and then you pray the act of contrition, you leave, and you pray your penance. That's it. I know that's harsh, but it's something that a lot of you may need to hear, and definitely talk about this with other Catholics in your life because it's super rude and it needs to end. And it's amazing if you want to have a long conversation with your priest, so you should make an appointment and have that experience. But don't take up other people's time and make it so that other people literally can't experience the sacrament. It would be like if when you receive the Eucharist, you wanted to have a really special moment with God, and so you receive the Eucharist. I'm not against people receiving the Eucharist kneeling down at all, even if no one else is. But it would be like if you went up to receive the Eucharist, you kneel down and you just like prayed for 10 minutes kneeling down before receiving the Eucharist, just because you wanted to kneel down and pray before the Blessed Sacrament when receiving the Eucharist. Like, if you did that and prevented people from going up and receiving the Eucharist because Mass ended, that would be infuriating. And so it's the same thing with confession, where you shouldn't take up so much time. Something that I did once when I knew that I would take more than 3 minutes, I let people go in front of me in line because there were like 5 people in line, and I was like, hey guys, you can go ahead of me because I'm going to take a little bit more time. So just think of other people and how you're affecting them. Number 5, before you leave for confession, pray to God for the strength and the confidence to boldly approach his throne and receive his compassion. It's so important to involve God in the entire process. Obviously, I always pray to God when I sin. I pray to God after I sin. I pray for forgiveness. But also, Jesus established the sacrament of confession where we also interact with him. But that doesn't mean you cannot pray about your sin in other contexts. I always pray before I go to confession, and it makes me feel more confident and more easygoing and less nervous. Also, ask your patron saint, your guardian angel, and Mary and Joseph. Ask them to come with you into the confessional so that you feel less nervous. I was actually shaking my last confession and I didn't remember to ask my patron saint to be there with me. So I should have done that and I wouldn't have been scared. Here is an encouraging Bible verse to help you. It is from Hebrews 4:15 through 16. For we do not have a high priest who is unable to sympathize with our weaknesses, but one who has similarly been tested in every way, yet without sin. So let us confidently approach the throne of grace to receive mercy and to find grace in time of need. Number 6, once you get into the confessional, say, Father, forgive me for I have sinned. It has been blank amount of time since my last confession. And since we're talking about this, I recommend going to confession at least once a month if it's important to not make up sin. So if you literally haven't mortal sinned, you haven't done anything of grave matter, don't make things up to go to confession. But I think if you're not going to confession, at least every 2 months, 3 months is super pushing it. It's required by the church to only go once a year, but I find for myself, I need to go every month to 6 weeks. 6 weeks is pushing it for me. But maybe you guys are better people than I am and don't need to go to confession as much. Number 7, don't make excuses. Don't tell stories. Don't say, Madison did this to me. She had so much malice and jealousy and she hurt Sarah and Dave as well. And so then I talked to her like this and I yelled at her and cursed her out because she did all of this to all these people. Can you believe what Madison did? Stop. If you have to tell a story and explain other people's behavior as a way to explain your sin, then you don't think you did something wrong and you're not sorry. Like I said with writing out your sins, instead of telling the whole story in depth about what Madison did and how other people are involved, all you have to say is yelled at someone, 1, cursed someone out, 1, malice, 1. That's all you need to do. You don't need to tell stories. Ask yourself, are you confessing your neighbor's sins or your own sins? So instead, just read from your list. If you need to talk about something in more depth, like I said, 3 to 4 minutes is actually a really long time. It's okay if you have a question or need to explain something in a little bit more depth. Then say, that was my last sin, and let the priest talk. The priest might ask you a follow-up question in which you could give a follow-up answer, but most of the time just reading off your list of sins is good to go, and the priest will give you an encouraging message or advice on how to pray, advice on how to do it differently, clarify a question you have, but like I said, it should take 3 to 4 minutes. Number 9, after the priest has talked, you can ask follow-up questions or you can ask for advice, but this needs to be brief. You don't need to just start talking and talking and talking. Instead, ask a question and let the priest talk and let him control the conversation of the confession. And again, if you followed number 4, there shouldn't be a lot of follow-up questions. If there are, then make an appointment. And your priest will be so excited that you made an appointment and want to talk one-on-one. Number 10, read the act of contrition, which should be on your notes section of your phone. Number 11, thank the priest and then leave. Smile at the person next in line to encourage them. Number 12, go find a pew, kneel down, talk to Jesus in the Blessed Sacrament, and pray your act of penance. I usually stay for 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer, and for example, if my penance is a decade of the rosary, I usually will pray an entire rosary. I'll just talk to Jesus, thank him for forgiving me, thank him for dying on the cross, talk about the situation. I usually cry because I feel so grateful to God and just amazed at Jesus' compassion and mercy and just the power of the crucifixion. So it's just such an intimate and special moment, and I really like just getting, since I'm already in a church, just staying in the church and praying and enjoying the experience. Number 13, go forth and sin no more. John 8:11. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I love you so much, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!